Somewhere on the internet right now, there is a forum from 2007. The theme is still blue. The logo is still pixelated. The banner ad in the header links to a company that stopped existing 12 years ago. And at the bottom of the page, in a small gray font, it says, "Currently active users, 1. One person. Not a community, not a crowd. 1. They posted yesterday. They will probably post tomorrow. Nobody has replied to them in years."
This isn't a haunted website. There's no virus, no jump scare, no glitch effect waiting at the end of this video. What's waiting is stranger than that. Because somewhere between 2008 and now, thousands of these places died. Quietly. Permanently. Most of them stayed dead, but a small number didn't. And in those few, one question keeps showing up. In forum after forum, on Reddit threads, on archive blogs, on obscure tech forums about other dead forums.
Why is someone still posting here? That's the question this video is about. Not who they are, not even really why, because we may never fully know that. The question is simpler, and somehow more unsettling. Why do these rooms still have a light on, when everyone who built them left years ago? To understand what we're looking at, you have to understand what a forum actually was. Before Reddit, before Discord, before group chats and algorithmic feeds, the internet's communities lived on software with names like phpBB, vBulletin, Envision PowerBoard, Simple Machines Forum. These weren't apps. They were small, independent kingdoms, usually run by one person, hosted on a rented server, dedicated to something absurdly specific. A model train forum, a laptop repair forum, a private World of Warcraft server, a regional Star Wars Galaxies roleplay guild. They weren't designed for speed. They were designed to hold things. A question could sit for 3 days before someone answered it, and that was fine. A thread could live for a decade. The architecture itself encouraged memory. Usernames, post counts, join dates, last visited timestamps. Little permanent fossils of who had been there. That kind of statistics line was everywhere. A quiet little scoreboard nobody thought twice about, until it became something else. Because starting around 2012, the migration began. Reddit centralized hundreds of these niche communities into single subreddits. Discord, launched in 2015, replaced slow, threaded conversation with live chat. And for gaming clans and server communities especially, it was a near-total extinction event. Then came the institutional deaths. In February 2017, IMDb shut down its message boards entirely, erasing in a single decision years of film discussion that had nowhere else to live. Yahoo Groups went the same way, just slower. Then there's the part almost nobody talks about. PHP killed more forums than any single company ever did. The first wave hit in 2015 and 2016, when PHP 7 quietly removed an entire set of database functions, the exact ones nearly every forum built between 2003 and 2010 was coded against. Thousands of boards broke overnight, with no one left to patch them. The second wave came later, as hosting companies retired PHP 7 itself, forcing the survivors onto PHP 8, a version strict enough to turn old, sloppy warnings into hard, unrecoverable errors. Most of these forums don't get a dramatic ending. No announcement, no goodbye thread, just a broken database, an expired module, and a blank white page with a clinical error message. That's how the internet's old neighborhoods usually die. Not with an explosion, with a silence so total it doesn't even register as an event. Which is exactly why the ones that don't go silent are so strange. If you go looking, and people do, Using search techniques borrowed straight from open source intelligence work, you can still find these forums today. Searches like this surface forums in exactly the condition you'd expect: ancient, broken, abandoned. Most of them are exactly what they look like: digital ruins, a homepage, a wall of dead links, a last post timestamp from 2014. But every so often, the search returns something different: a last post date from this year. The first time you see it, it doesn't feel eerie. It feels like a mistake. Maybe the timestamp is wrong. Maybe it's a bug. You click in expecting to find an error message or a redirect or nothing at all. Instead, you find a post. Sometimes it's short. Still here. Anyone around? Bump. Sometimes it's longer. A continuation of a thread from years earlier, written as if no time had passed at all. Sometimes it's a reply to a question nobody asked, because the person who originally would have answered hasn't logged in since 2013. And at the bottom of the page, that line again: currently active users, 1. This is the moment the story usually starts for people who stumble onto these forums. Not the broken design, not the dead links, the number 1. Because a forum with 0 users online is just an artifact. A forum with 1 user online is something that is, technically, still happening. It raises an obvious question. Who is this? And why are they the only one left? The boring answer, and it's worth saying clearly because it's often correct, is that this is one real person, alone, maintaining a routine. People who've traced specific cases in communities built around games like Star Wars Galaxies or hobby spaces for model railroading describe a consistent pattern: a person for whom the forum functions as a fixed, reliable ritual. A digital room they keep returning to, dusting, maintaining, even though no one else walks through it anymore. That alone is a quietly sad explanation, not sinister, just lonely. But it's not the only pattern people find, and the deeper you look, the less tidy the boring explanation becomes, because some of these still active forums aren't being kept alive by a person at all. Starting in the mid-2000s, a lot of forums installed a specific kind of add-on, an RSS auto poster. Point it at an outside feed, game patch notes, anime news, a daily horoscope, whatever the community cared about, and every few hours it would quietly create a new thread, pulling content in automatically. No moderator required. On a living forum, nobody thinks twice about it. It's wallpaper. On a dead one, it becomes the only thing still moving. Here's the part that makes it interesting. The original feed it was pulling from is usually long gone. The gaming site shut down, the API changed, the URL just stopped resolving years ago. Nobody updated the bot because nobody was left to notice. So it keeps running on schedule, forever, posting broken fragments of a feed that no longer exists. Empty threads, duplicate titles, the same malformed entry, over and over, for a decade. That's not a haunting. It's closer to a kind of administrative afterlife, a piece of code that doesn't know its purpose ended. And this is the turning point, because once you understand that some of the apparent activity on these forums is automated, the question changes shape entirely. It's no longer just, why is someone still posting here? It becomes, how do you tell the difference between a person and a script? And what does it mean that, on some of these forums, you genuinely can't? Look at both of those again if you need to. Most people can't tell which one is the bot on the first pass. Because once you start looking for bots, you start finding something else hiding behind them. The deeper layer here involves a vulnerability that's specific to abandoned forums, old, broken CAPTCHA systems. Spam bots, many of them built for SEO link farming, frequently associated with networks based in Russia and China, exploit these weak old security checks to register accounts and start posting automatically. That part is unremarkable. It happens across the entire abandoned web. What's unusual is what kind of text some of these bots generate. Many of them are built on Markov chains, a decades-old text generation method that builds new sentences by statistically recombining words it has already seen. On a normal website, that produces obvious gibberish, easy to spot and ignore. But on an old forum, some of these bots are trained on the only text available to them, the forum's own archive. Years of real human conversation, hobby discussions, inside jokes, half-finished arguments from 2009. In the more striking cases, the ones that get passed around on archiving forums and Reddit threads dedicated to exactly this, the result is something genuinely uncanny. Threads that read like half-real conversations, stitched together out of dead members' words, threaded through with hidden advertising. Not quite human, not quite nonsense. A kind of digital echo built out of voices that no longer exist. Then there's the visual layer, which is its own kind of evidence trail.
In June 2017, PhotoBucket, once one of the largest free image hosting services on the internet, changed its terms overnight, demanding nearly $400 a year to keep displaying images on third-party sites. An enormous portion of the old web's visual history broke in a single month. Old tutorials, old build logs, old personal photo threads, all replaced with the same gray placeholder and the same small red warning icon, repeated hundreds of times down a single page.
It's not designed to be unsettling. It's a billing dispute that happened to visually gut an entire era of the internet. But the effect, scrolling through one of these forums today, is something close to looking at a room where all the photographs have been turned to face the wall. And then there's the detail that, once people notice it, they can't stop bringing up. The date bug. When an old forum's SQL database becomes partially corrupted, which happens constantly to unmaintained software, a user's last visited timestamp can reset to a specific, infamous date. January 1st, 1970. That date isn't random. It's the Unix epoch, the literal 0 point that computers use to measure time. When a system has no valid date for something, this is the date it defaults to.
So you end up with long-dead accounts on long-dead forums, displaying a last visited date that reads like the moment time itself began. It's not supernatural, it's a database error. But it doesn't feel like a database error. It feels like staring at a wound in the calendar. This is where the community theories start, because the official, rational explanations, a lonely hobbyist, a leftover script, a corrupted database, don't fully account for the feeling of finding one of these places. So people fill the gap.
There's the recurring dead man switch theory, the belief that some specific solitary poster is, in fact, deceased, and that what's still updating is a script they configured years ago to keep a thread alive indefinitely, a kind of pre-written afterlife. There's no confirmed case of this actually happening, but the theory persists because it explains a specific feeling that some of these accounts post with a rhythm too steady to be a person, but too personal to be only a bot. There's also a more grounded explanation worth sitting with. Groups like Archive Team, the loose volunteer collective that spent over a decade racing to back up dying websites before they vanish for good, have watched this exact pattern play out over and over. A community dies, the traffic disappears, and almost always, one account keeps logging in anyway. The read isn't about ghosts, it's about psychology. The lone poster is, in most cases people have actually traced, simply someone with a strong need for routine. Someone who treats the forum less like a website and more like a room they keep tending, even half knowing nobody else is coming back. So what are we actually looking at? Not a haunted website, not a mystery with a solution waiting at the end of this video. What we're looking at is closer to an abandoned neighborhood that technically still has electricity. Most of the people left. The buildings are still standing though, because nobody bothered, or was able, to tear them down. A renewal payment still goes through automatically on a card that belonged to an admin who stopped checking their email years ago. An RSS bot keeps importing threads from a feed that broke a decade ago, looping broken fragments into a forum nobody reads. A spam bot keeps quoting conversations between people who, in some cases, may no longer be alive. And somewhere in that structure, in a small number of cases, there is one person, still walking the halls, still flipping a light switch in a room built for hundreds. We don't know, in most cases, who that person is. We don't know if they're maintaining a hobby, observing a private ritual, or simply unaware that everyone else already left. The forum doesn't tell us. It just keeps recording timestamps.
What we do know is this: the modern internet was built to erase things quickly and quietly. A broken plugin, an expired PHP version, a blank white error page where a community used to be. That's the normal way these places end. These forums are the exception. Not because they survived. Plenty of broken, abandoned things survived by accident. They're the exception because somewhere inside the wreckage, something is still being used. Not a crowd, not a revival, just one person posting into a room that stopped listening years ago. And the strange part isn't that the room is empty. It's that technically, it isn't. Not completely. Not yet.